Thank you so much for your very nice introduction. It was sort of my life in a nutshell, I believe. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I have to say that I never ever miss an opportunity to come to my favorite country, which is, of course, Iceland. And I'm not kidding you. So I'm very happy to be here today. And so far for me, this has been it's been a great day, you know. During lunch, I saw a robot singing Queen, Freddie Mercury. Who could imagine that when I woke up this morning? But Freddie Mercury, he will never be the same after this, I have to say. And I also listened this morning to Tanmar Baksti. And he talked about artificial intelligence and machine learning. He was 14 years old, which is 3 years younger than my youngest son. Yes, that was the right way to put it. He was full of enthusiasm, and he was an extremely skilled technologist. And here I am. I'm turning 54 next week. I have a suit, I have a tie, I have gray hair, and I will talk about exactly the same subject as Tamar did this morning. And since using slides is so 2017, I will just talk to you, and I will tell you some stories. And to be honest, I'm getting a bit dizzy about all these presentations with dusts and shifts and everything is moving. So please bear with me for the last 25 minutes, and I will tell you some stories that you will hopefully remember for the time to come. And these stories will, of course, be told out from a data protection perspective. I read an interesting story the other day in the papers. And it was about how the shopping malls in the United States are closing down. And the reason is simple. People do their shopping online, and the goods and services are delivered on their doorstep. In some years, maybe by a drone. And imagine what impact this will have on the society. As the article described it, and we have some Americans here who can probably confirm this, the shopping mall is a strong symbol in the American society. The article told us that the shopping mall was a place where young people had their first date, maybe had their first job, where they have been hanging out, almost like the gasoline station in the small place where I grew up. So it's really changing the environment when something like this is happening. So what is the link between this story and data protection? Well, I think it's quite simple. Without huge amounts of personal data, it would not have been possible to build a business to compete with the traditional stores. And without data, and without algorithms, it would not have been possible to be cost efficient in such a way that they compete with the traditional stores. And the data surrounding us today is really far beyond our imagination. For several years, I have been following some reports called What Happens in an Internet Minute. I'm still waiting for the 2018 numbers, but until they're ready, we have to stick with the 2017 numbers. So what's really happened in 1 minute on the internet? Well, we snap 1.8 million snaps. We carry out 3.5 million searches on Google. We sweep 990 times on Tinder. You're all familiar with Tinder, yes, I guess? That was a joke, by the way. And we log in on Facebook 900,000 times. And the Facebook numbers, they are actually of particular interest because they are not increasing that much and that fast as some of the other services. And that is, of course, because the consumers are logged in on Facebook all the time. And that's wonderful for Facebook, whose business idea is to become the internet. Everything you need can be found on Facebook. And these data are, of course, used for a lot of different purposes. They are, for instance, used to make a lot of decisions without involvement of man or women or person. So algorithms and artificial intelligence will, in the time to come, make more and more decisions, and more important decisions that are vital for consumers and for citizens. We can talk also about, and it can be also decisions of great welfare significance for us, like decision about receiving social security or not, about student reports, student support, housing support, mortgage, credit rate, and insurance. Just give me a few examples. In Germany, there's a company called Creditec, and it's a credit score company. And in my country, which is Norway, credit score is quite strictly regulated. I think it's in a lot of European countries. So a credit score company can only use a limited number of sources and pieces of information like income, loan, failure to pay your installment or your interest rate, where you live, how many times you have moved, etc., in order to carry out a credit score assessment. But Creditec, they have a different business model. They have developed an algorithm consisting of 20,000 data points. And they are using deep search on the internet to to decide whether a consumer should be allowed to have a credit or not. They claim that their algorithm is more accurate, that more people will get the credit than with our system, and that is not the point I would like to discuss today. But there is a key problem by using algorithms and artificial intelligence instead of our system. How do you actually explain the decision? You can actually end up with an old joke, who some of you might have seen, about the man going to the travel agency and he wants to go to Spain, but he is not allowed to do that. And he asks why. And the answer is because the computer says no, you can't go to Spain. And going back to Creditec, one piece of information in this algorithm is whether or not you are charging your phone during the night. So that is actually one element in the evaluation of your credit score. But is it positive or is it negative, credit score-wise? It could be positive because, I'm a very busy man. I read my news, I sync my mail, and the only time I have the time to charge during the evening. Or I might be a fussyhead who always forget to charge my phone. So I don't know whether it's positive or negative. And what is actually the value or actual score, the importance of this very, very tiny piece of information? Is it 1%, 0.2%, 0.01%? I don't know, and neither is it possible, I think, to really explain this to the consumer. And we see the same in the public sector. In Norway, the tax authority has developed an algorithm to flag tax returns who should be checked for tax evasion. The State Bank for student loans are developing also an algorithm to flag fraudulent scholarships. And there's also the issue of price discrimination that I would like to talk to you about. And I would like to tell you a true story. It's a very simple story, but it's a true story, and it's happened to me the other day. In November this year, I'm going to New Orleans with some of my friends. We are going to study the midterm election in the United States. I was there also when Trump, our favorite president, was elected. I'm interested in stuff like this. And my job is to fix the tickets and to find the right time and to get the best deals. So from my home computer, I was checking a lot of websites, Kayak, British Airways, yeah, you name them. And I experienced that the price increased the more I searched. And the evening I booked my ticket, the price suddenly raised with 1,000 Norwegian kroner, which is about 100 euros. I didn't pay that much attention to it, so I paid my ticket, emailed my friends who ordered their ticket the same or the next day. And their price, 1,000 kroner less than my price. And I was wondering why it was like this. So the next morning, I checked the prices on my office computer. I have never searched any of these sites from my office before because I have other things doing during my work hours than checking price of the ticket. And the price was 1,000 kroner left, 100 euros left. How could this happen? It could not be a coincidence. And my qualified guess is that I was profiled someplace along my research as a very interested traveler. A man who really is eager to go. He will go with 3 of his friends. This is a guy that we really have to hold on to. But when he's ordering his ticket, we raise the price. And for the record, there has been research verifying stories like mine. For instance, prices on computers, prices on hotels.com, where Swedes, for some reason, are getting lower prices than people from Spain. And a new trend that is coming our way is emotional surveillance. I don't think this was mine, actually, but that's okay. Who was speaking before me? Okay, anyway, the water is wonderful in Iceland. Should be something. Okay, let's go on with emotional surveillance. My emotions, you know. And for us, the story about emotional surveillance started when an engineer passed by a digital marketing sign for a pizza chain in Oslo. But instead of getting a commercial for a warm, fresh pizza, the sign, by mistake, displayed the log containing information that gave a description about him. So he could read while he passed the screen: male, young adult, glasses, smiling. And the purpose of this sign was, of course, to analyze his face and to customize the marketing to the persons passing this display. We checked the case and find out that men got advertisements for pizza with red meat, while women got ads for fresh salad. I wish I was a woman in this situation. But anyway, our emotions can be measured today, or surveilled if we want to, by the use of several different techniques. Like in this pizza case, facial recognition. Voice analytics, of course, or analysis. Are we happy? Are we sad? Are we excited? I was drinking from the bottle. Ooh, it's not mine. Shows emotions. Sensors on my body, like smartwatches. I have one right here. Fitness trackers who measures my pulse. And of course, my online behavior. And the pizza example is actually quite an innocent version of what we can expect to see in the future. In the health sector, actually, in a hospital on the western coast of Norway, in Bergen, they are carrying out research to monitor people with a bipolar or manic depressive disorder in order to register changes in the mood, changes in what they eat, how they sleep, tracking activity, how much you sweat. And the main purpose, of course, is to be aware of symptoms at an early stage in order to start the treatment. And also in teaching, we will see emotional surveillance. How you learn in school is closely linked to emotions like fascination, frustration, or curiosity. And the teacher can easily discover signs for motivation or lack of motivation at an early stage to help pupils to get more motivated. I have now walked you through some examples to illustrate how artificial intelligence, algorithms, automatic decisions are used today and how they can be used in the future. And it goes without saying, and we heard a lot of presentations earlier today, that this will make the society more efficient, save cost. We can have more precise medicine. We can treat cancer in a better way. But there is also a backside of the wonderful story of technology. And the way I see it today, there is really a fundamental imbalance in the market. The businesses, what happens in an internet minute businesses, for instance, they know a lot about me. But I know very little about what they are doing with my data today and in the future. And data can and will and is receiving very sensitive information. And do I really want the machine to decide whether we shall start a treatment towards the depression? And do we really want Facebook to be the company who warns us when we are at risk of committing a suicide? Do we really want that? I don't think so. And who create and develop the algorithms used to make decisions? Are they transparent? Are they fair? Are they biased? So in the light of this, we can ask the question whether is it any hope for data protection? And there are clear conflicts between data protection on one side, artificial intelligence, and algorithms on the other side. Data protection is about processing as little data as possible. Artificial intelligence is about processing as much data as possible. Data protection, we use data for one clear purpose. AI, we use the data for new purposes. Data protection, transparency is very important and absolutely vital. AI, transparency, it's really not possible. Data protection, clear and concise information about what you are using the data for. AI, how can you possibly explain an algorithm? So the question remains, is it hope for data protection? And my answer to this question is, believe it or not, yes. I believe that the new General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, has the power to change the imbalance between businesses on one side and the governments on the same side, we might add, and consumers and citizens on the other side. And there are at least 3 tools, which are all enforceable, by the way, which I believe will have significant importance. That is data impact assessments, is data portability, and it's data protection by design. And I will lose my 10 minutes, was it? I had 10 minutes left. Isn't that right? I lost track of time. I forgot to put on my Fitbit. 10 minutes? Okay, excellent. That's good. Okay. But anyway, let's talk about data. I have to take the right one. Okay. Data portability. In Europe, for the first time, we see the introduction of a consumer right in data protection, data portability, which means, as you probably all know, that I can say to a company, I don't want you to have my data anymore, I will move it to another company. And as a former consumer ombudsman for many years, for 10 years, I'm extremely happy to see that data protection and consumer issues are moving so much closer together in Europe. But what can actually this lead to? Well, I will give you a quite simplified comparison. In 2002, something called mobile number portability was introduced in Europe. It meant that I could keep my mobile number when I switched to a new telecom operator. And it made a lot of difference to competition. I mean, who would like to, at least those days, where the contact list was, very, very hard to use. So no one wanted to actually switch operator. But it made a lot of difference in competition. And moving large, amounts of data is of course very much more complicated than transferring of mobile number. But the thinking in data portability is exactly the same. The explanation and the reason why it's important is that competition will be stimulated and my ownership of my data will be strengthened. And today, it is often the case that the one with most data can offer the best services. This has a lock-in effect. It prevents competition, it prevents innovation, and it's bad for me as a consumer. Because I can, at the same time, be bound to a company that process my personal data in a way that I don't like. Or I might be presented with terms and conditions that I have to accept because I really don't have any choice. But with data portability, I really believe that this will change because it is empowering me as a consumer. Another new tool in the GDPR is privacy by design or data protection by design. And this means that data protection should be built into the technology from the very, very start of a development process. It can be, for instance, encryption, data minimalization, pseudonymization, automatic deletion, or a My Site page. Why is this so important? Well, the way I see it in the concept privacy by design, a wish and a condition meet. Companies, they have a wish to use data to develop great services, but the condition is to follow the law, which I think a lot of companies actually like to do. I will give you a couple of examples. When the taxation authority developed the algorithm and the system that I mentioned earlier, they started out with 100 pieces of information that they actually needed to check the tax returns from the citizens in Norway. But then they carried out a data minimalization process, and they ended up with only 30 pieces of information. So they actually got rid of 5 minutes, yeah, sure, don't worry. I will use exactly 5 minutes. You can trust me. They ended up with only 30 pieces of information, which actually meant that they could get rid of 120 pieces of information about me as a consumer and a citizen, which is a very, very good example of privacy by design. And the second example, I drop because I only have 5 minutes left. The third thing I wanted to mention was data protection impact assessment. Difficult name, hard to translate, but what does it really mean? Well, in practice, it means that a company must have a full overview of all the data processing that is carried out and for what purpose the data is used. The company must consider the risk of all processings and impose measures to reduce the risk. There has not been that much talk about that earlier today. But from the 25th of May, every company, Fujitsu and all the other companies, you have heard great presentations from them. I mean great presentations. I really mean it, but not a single word about carrying out data protection impact assessments and how to actually reduce the risk by processing personal data. And if the risk is still high, they must carry out a so-called prior consultation with us as DPA. And this process will force the companies to be much more accountable in their processing of data. And in addition to this, companies must provide consumers with much better information. They must be more transparent, and they must, on some condition, accept that consumers can object to profiling. And they must also appoint a data protection officers. And finally, and I think we will hear more about that in a later presentation, for fully automated decisions, the consumers also will have the right to an explanation of the logic behind an algorithm. This will be a great challenge for a lot of companies, amongst them some of the presentations that we have heard today. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to start examining the first cases regarding this. How to explain the logic behind an algorithm. Privacy is definitely under pressure. But I will say, at least from a European perspective, that we have managed quite well, fairly well, so far, with an outdated legal framework from year 2000. The new legislation will enter into force the 25th of May 2018. That's a Friday. We will party on Friday, we will party on Saturday, we will start working on Monday. We will not see any changes on the 28th of May. But slowly, it is really my strong belief that we will start to win back lost ground. Thank you so much for your attention.